While the entire focus of the world is towards Russia and Ukraine, the immediate impact of that is felt in our neighboring country, Sri Lanka. How? I'll tell you that in a while. Imagine standing for days together in a queue to buy and fill up your fuel tank for your car or a bike. Imagine standing in long hours to buy basic essentials such as kerosene and any food items. Imagine the power cut is close to about 13 to 14 hours in a day. That's essentially no power at all. So this is the state of affairs in Sri Lanka for the normal people. Who is impacted? To begin with, of course, as usual, the poor and the middle class are majorly impacted, but it would spiral into the well-off people as well if it is not controlled, which is unlikely that it's going to be controlled. So what is the economic situation of Sri Lanka? Inflation is at a staggering 20 to 30%. The value of Sri Lankan currency is 350 rupees per dollar. They have less than $2 billion left in their foreign reserves. People are just praying and hoping that they don't fall sick because the basic need and the basic equipment in a hospital is not available. And all the immediate surgeries have been postponed. So how did Sri Lanka get here? There are multiple reasons to it. The number one reason is freebies. Never feel too joyful when government announces subsidies or tax cuts. This is one of the core reasons of Sri Lankan economic crisis. While it is good theoretically to have more money in your pocket so that your buying power increases, the timing also matters significantly. While the government announced tax cuts, COVID also hit at the same time. So people started saving money and not spending enough. The second reason is COVID. As we all know, Sri Lanka is a heavily tourism dependent economy. Close to about 10 to 15% of the GDP comes from tourism. While they made all this tax cut, that is the moment when COVID hit and their tourism stopped completely. The third reason is government policy. While the first one, what I explained about tax cut, is definitely a flawed one because of its timing, the third reason is banning of pesticides. While the first reason of tax cut is anyways flawed due to its timing and due to the impact of the COVID, the third reason of banning pesticide is very good theoretically. But when it comes to actual, it's not sustainable when you have hungry stomach to feed. The idea is very good of going organic, but what happens when you go organic? You cannot use pesticides. If you don't use pesticides, the worms are going to eat close to about 70% of your goods. So you're left with only 30% of food, example, foods or grains or anything for that matter. So this has led Sri Lanka from an exporter to an importer. They were running short of food and they wanted to import food now. While these are the primary reasons, there are many other reasons also which added up to this, such as the Easter bombing. Brings us to our introductory reason of war between Russia and Ukraine. Due to the war between Russia and Ukraine, the fuel prices spiraled out of control and Sri Lanka was in no position to buy additional fuel with the reserves what they have. So all this put together made Sri Lanka be where they are today. So what is the solution for this? What is the remedy? Of course, Sri Lankan government and other think tank are putting enough measures to put off the fire. But is it sufficient? Maybe not. Humanitarian crisis? Maybe not. Maybe it doesn't need Red Cross to start distributing food. It is not that severe as you may see in some African countries. But Sri Lanka was a well-off economy like India or any developing country. But then it has come to this. So what is Sri Lankan government doing? They have put some measures. To begin with, seeking help from International Monetary Fund, which essentially gives away loans. It is also asking for help from World Bank. It is asking help from neighboring countries. India is giving away close to about 2.5 billion worth of line of credit. So line of credit essentially means it's not for any specific purpose. You have this if you have this amount in your bank, you can utilize this as and when you want with a lesser rate of interest. Along with this, Sri Lanka has also devalued its currency. What is devaluation of the currency? Devaluation of the currency is reducing the value of your own currency for a fixed rate. So what does this mean? Let me give you an example. In the global market, for $1 you may get 1 kilo of rice. So $1 is equal to 75 rupees of Indian currency and 300 rupees of Sri Lankan currency. So what Sri Lanka would now do by devaluing its currency is let's assume they would devalue it to 600 rupees. So instead of getting 1 kilo of rice for $1, now you will get 2 kilos of rice for $1. So obviously in the global market, in comparison with India, I'm getting 2 kilos of rice from Sri Lanka, whereas I'm just getting 1 kilo of rice from India. So obviously in the global would prefer to trade with Sri Lanka because they are getting 2 kilos of rice. So what does this do? With this, the export increases. More and more of goods and services are sold in the international market, and more of rice in Sri Lankan case, as an example, is sold in the international market. While this is the first advantage when it comes to export, the second advantage is when it comes to import. So Sri Lankans would not prefer to shell out 600 rupees to buy 2 kilos of rice or 2 kilos of anything for that matter for $1 equivalent. So they would rather prefer something which is grown locally. So this would limit the import. So thereby their currency is going to stabilize and would be more foreign reserves, and people would prefer and there would be more export than imports. While it has its drawbacks also, you may ask why is that other countries should also not do that? Well, they can certainly do that, and that is when there could be an economic war. This is a temporary measure. And the third top solution what Sri Lankan government is looking for is repatriation. The Sri Lankan government is asking its people who are living abroad to send sufficient money or invest in Sri Lanka so that their economy can. This is the current situation of Sri Lanka. Hope you like the information.